Hey everyone, what's up? This is Koos and you are listening to the second episode of the podcast, The Story Behind Time, the show that reveals the story of triathletes who crossed the finish line just before the cutoff time or did not make it to the finish line at all. Today we have Eoin on the show. Eoin is a triathlete from the UK who participated at the full distance Ironman in Cascais Portugal in October. Eoin had a tough and long day, but made it to the finish line just under 16 hours. We will discuss everything what happened that day, and Eoin has some interesting stories to share about holes in his wetsuit during the swim and being at the front of the race with pro athletes overtaking him. Have fun. Hi Eoin, great to have you on the show and thanks for having some time on this Saturday to talk to me. Why do you mind starting off by just giving a little introduction on yourself for our listeners?
Yeah, so my name's Eoin. I'm 21 years old. I'm in my third year of university at the moment. So philosophy with applied data analysis. I live in England. I've lived there my whole life. Yeah, that's about everything that comes to mind immediately, I'd say.
Do you have any background in sports, like other than triathlon?
Yeah, I don't really have. Say the first time I started running seriously was in 2019, and it basically just kicked off from there. I read one book by a guy named David Goggins about this whole idea of, pushing past the kind of perceived boundaries that you have, and I just really like that idea. So I'm running an ultra marathon, and it worked, and then I kept building up until 2021 Ironman. So
that was your first goal, to do like an ultra marathon, like when you started off as a runner?
Sorry, say that again.
Was it your first goal to do like an ultra marathon or something like that when you started off as a runner? Yeah.
First goal is see if I could run an ultra marathon. So that was a 50-kilometer run I did in 2019. I was really surprised how quickly you can actually make progress in the kind of long distance sport. And then I guess after that, I heard about the Ironman and I saw videos, and the kind of it just looked incredible, like the moment at the finish line when everything kind of comes together after all that hard work. And I just thought it was brilliant. I thought I had to try. So.
Yeah. And before your ultra marathon, did you actually do a marathon first at the first place, or not?
I just skipped straight from. I skipped straight into ultra.
That's insane.
It was probably not the smartest idea, I don't think, because I got quite badly injured after that. It really took it out of my knees. But I just figured go for the shoot for the moon and see what happens, I guess. What about yourself?
I did cycle as a child and in my childhood a lot. Did like competition and that stuff. So I started off as a cyclist, and I've always been intrigued by Ironman, because I remember when I was like 16 years old, I was watching television and I saw some people, like I was like sitting on a Saturday night on the couch, and I was like, okay, now I'm looking at somebody who basically swam like 4 kilometers, did like 100K on the bike and ran a marathon in like 8 hours something, and looks like super fit. Like, what is this? Who are these people? To me, it sounded like impossible. And I had some friends who trained for a marathon and did it like in just over 3 hours. And then I was like, okay, these people were like training for 2 years to do one marathon in 3 hours 15 or something. And then you have this random triathlete who's like running a marathon in 2 hours 40 minutes. I was like, it felt like something superhuman.
That's it,
yeah. Completely intrigued, and I always wanted to do it. And it's a crazy experience and a crazy sport. But not many people start off as triathletes, and most of the time they have like some background. And for you as an ultra runner, that's also quite.
Although There seems a lot of people are like that as well, though, that you hear about someone doing it, and maybe it's someone who's quite normal. It's not someone who's always been like a really experienced athlete, and it gets you thinking like, well, if they did it, like, what, maybe could I do that as well? And then
and how is it to combine it with your study? I mean,
it's difficult. It's been really difficult, I think, to try and like balance those. It's sometimes you just have to put in the really long days, and you're thinking, well, maybe I should be studying right now, but it's kind of like, I don't know. Sometimes when you commit to doing something on top of what you already have, you kind of find time that you almost didn't have before, in a way. I think you try and push a bit harder. But you're a lawyer as well, right? So you must be much busier than I am, I would assume.
For some reason, a lot of lawyers are extremely attracted by this sport. I don't know why, but probably lawyers like things that are extreme. And I generally feel that in the whole corporate world, people are kind of interested in doing a lot of extreme sports. It really helps me to give structure to my day. So I'm a lawyer now. I've been a lawyer for a bit over 8 years now, and the first 5 years it was like I was only working like nonstop, and I didn't really have anything else. And with triathlon, it gives me like a purpose on a day-to-day basis. Basically to say, okay, wake up early, jump on the bike, on the trainer, go for a run, or go to the swimming pool, and you start off your day with something, and then you go to work. That really helped me to give more structure to life. I became fitter, healthier. I was starting to feel better. And it is difficult to combine it, but I do feel that you can do it, especially in the morning. You have some time there. And lawyers work till late, but I don't start early. I basically had to get used to waking up a little bit earlier and then do something in the morning. And that works fine. But sometimes it's like in these months when the alarm goes off at 5 and you're like, okay, I have to go for a run in 30 minutes. Like,
I think everyone struggles with that. There's just no way. That's why you do it in a way as well. And like it's kind of a sacrifice, but at the same time, it's like the alternative is maybe just spending the rest of your evening like exhausted after a long day of work watching TV. It's like maybe try and do something a bit different. So
for me it's all about like creating good habits. And when I look back at my life, when I started as a lawyer, I had a lot of bad habits in terms of you work till late, you get home late, you grab a beer, you eat chocolate or something like that. Basically you're doing something that's not helping you. And now you create a good habit by waking up early and doing some sports, and you get the reward immediately. And even though it's like difficult to wake up early, I already know. I mean, when I go to the swimming pool, actually, I'm never looking forward to it. I'm always like, to go swimming again. I mean, it's such a hassle. I mean, you wake up, you put on your clothes, you have to go to the swimming pool, you put off your clothes, you get yourself wet, you get out, and but afterwards, I always feel rewarded and always feel good. So, and that helps mentally to get through it, I would say.
I do think though, like even if it is kind of a hassle, like I've kind of found that you almost gain energy from it somehow, instead of it taking away, which is really bizarre. But like you said, it does just give you a lot more energy, like throughout the rest of the day to keep going. That's been really fun, I guess, experiencing that.
It is. And when you so you started as a runner, and then you had the idea to do a triathlon. I mean, how was it to switch to cycling and swimming?
I guess, to be honest, it was kind of, I had decided in my head that I wanted to do the Ironman. Was towards like, okay, well now I'm going to have to start cycling and swimming as well. I guess part of it, like I'm sure a lot of people get this, is literally just the name. It's like it's supposed to be the hardest single day endurance event in the world. It's called the Ironman. Like, hey, maybe if I'm into this kind of stuff, this is something I want to try. So that's kind of, that was my reasoning, I guess, to start picking it up. So you started from a cycling background, and then Like at what point, like in terms, like was this many years ago for you? Because
I always wanted to do the Ironman, but I told myself that I couldn't run and I didn't have a swimming background. So for a long time, it stayed like a dream that never really came to fulfillment or never came alive. And then in 2019, I thought, well, maybe I have to sign up for a freestyle swim course. And I did it, and it was like bizarre. I feel that learning swimming, like freestyle swimming, was probably the hardest thing I had to learn as an adult.
Yeah.
I mean, my first swimming lesson, the teacher said like, okay, guys, everybody's now going to do like a 50-meter freestyle, how you consider you should do freestyle. And everybody was like confident, like, yeah, well, I know how to do freestyle. I did it many times as a friend. And you go through the pool and it just looks like one big mess of like water blowing up out of the pool.
Yeah.
They recorded that, and the teacher was like, okay, there's quite some work to do with this group.
Yeah, I actually had a really similar experience the first time I tried swimming, where it felt more like drowning than actually swimming. I was exhausted by the end. Like it was a 25-meter pool I was in. By the time I got to the end of it, I'm like grasping onto this. Just it's crazy then, like thinking that only a couple weeks ago.
It's bizarre. I found it so mental. Like everything you do. I mean, I was sinking like a rock, and I had like no clue. And they were saying, "Yeah, you have to use your glutes to be like high in the water." I was like, "How do I use these things? I mean, I don't have a switch. Like, oh yeah, now I'm going to turn on my glutes or something." Yeah. Like, what the hell is this? I was so intimidated, and then you go swimming, you're going to practice it for like the next month, and then some like old lady is walking into the swimming pool, and these people can be so quick if they just have the technique. And that's what I always find very cool, that swimming is so technical. I was like, well, if you can master that skill, you can do that until you can do it at a very high age. And I start to like it better now, but still it's a little bit of struggle.
Do you think, would you say cycling is still your favorite one then, or like, because it sounds like you kind of enjoy swimming a bit more?
I like it more. The technique is becoming better, and now I can enjoy it more. But like cycling is the backbone of my sports background, and luckily in triathlon, cycling is like the biggest part of the race. Yeah. So I do feel there is a benefit with that, and also for me it was difficult to also start learning to run. I didn't have a running background, and I mean in the beginning you can make progress really quickly if you run until like 1 to 2 hours. But what I struggle with a lot in my normal training weeks is with like the long run. If I have a training week and I have to fit in a long run like over 2 hours, it takes a lot of recovery for me, and that's something I find difficult.
That's interesting, because I think from what I can gather, on the whole, you're a lot more experienced than I am with kind of any part of this, because I saw on your Insta page it was like you're aiming for like under 10 hours for an Ironman. I kind of like, that's not even but yeah, it's interesting that you still find running to be like the hardest part of that, like in spite of all that training. Because for me at least, like running, maybe it's just like where you come from in a way. Like running has always been kind of the easiest part of it for me. I just remember like on the I was thinking in my head, like, just get to the run. That's when it's going to be the really fun part, and it kind of was. I love running, so.
But you have a background as an ultra runner, right? So you cannot even be scared for a marathon. I mean, that's short for you. Eh? I find that a super cool story. I think there are very, very few people who like first did an ultra run of 50K and actually never did a marathon.
I mean, what I was reading about was have you heard of David Goggins before?
Yeah,
because in his book he was describing like his beyond insane, which was like 100 miles. I mean, like he almost killed himself doing it, but it's like in my head, I was kind of just thinking, well, if someone without really any training, like sure, he's a fit guy, but not endurance. Like if he can set himself a goal to suddenly just go and do that, it's like surely I can at least get to 50, like 50K, like in, you know, a short time span. So yeah, it's just really incredible, like being able to actually go and do that. I loved it.
Do you feel that there is like a trick with these ultra runs in terms of that your body can get used to the pounding for such a long time? Is it like very mental, or is there a way that you take off the stress of it?
I'm not really sure. I think it kind of depends every time you hit a difficult moment. Maybe like the thing that pushes you through is slightly different. Like sometimes you're able to say like, well, I want to do this because I want to show my family and my friends that it's possible. Sometimes it's for you and you just want to see, can I just get one step further? Sometimes I don't even think I can really put it into words, like why I want to keep going. You just know that it's something that you have to do. I think it's just like in time, like really just being able to fall back on them, I guess. It's a difficult question.
I'm quite intrigued by it because I've seen some documentaries of these people who do like the 100-mile races in the US and so kind of those things. And I find it interesting because my experience is that a lot of triathletes struggle with the run because it takes a lot of recovery. Well, we all like running, but if you run for 3 hours, it's difficult than cycling 3 hours. But these ultra runners kind of seem to get away with it. So I'm always interested, is it like core training, is it strength, or is it just technique, or
so you mean like the actual physical recovery from that's, I'm not sure. I think for me, like naturally, I think I have quite big legs without really having to do much strength training. I've had that can help, like if you have good muscle strength rather than it being kind of frail down there, like it can help absorb the impact a little bit. Oh, one thing I actually do use, which I don't think many people do, is the kind of Vibram barefoot shoes.
No, maybe I saw it on your Instagram. I saw one picture that I was thinking, what kind of shoes are you wearing?
I'll see if I got them around. If you can bear with me for like 2 seconds.
Sure. Sure.
I'll try and not be gone for too long.
No, that's fine. Owen is grabbing his shoes right now, which is going to be interesting.
There you go.
Life-saving training hack.
Yeah. So this is the one that I use. You can get ones like this where it's like you don't actually need the individual toes, but the whole idea is that there's like there's no real cushioning on any of it.
Is that based on the idea that you kind of use your foot in the complete natural way? I mean,
exactly. Yeah, it was. So I was listening to an audiobook about this on a run, which was it was to do with how if you're using cushions on your some people, it can encourage you to sort of stamp down into the cushion space in the shoe, so that extra pressure that you're pushing to try and hit solid ground just travels through to your knee. So I'm not sure that makes much sense, but it's essentially just, in a nutshell, we're built to run, so the foot as well, you would think, is supposed to be built to run. So
probably you are built to run, and like my body is still figuring out how to run. And do you do all your runs on these shoes?
Sorry?
Do you do all your runs on these shoes?
I do all of my runs in those now. It definitely takes a lot more out of your calf muscles. But after you go through like an adjustment period, I really enjoy running with them.
Oh wow. And in the preparation of the Ironman in Cascais, did you do any other triathlons in preparation thereof?
I did a couple of sort of self-planned ones because I find that was a really easy, low pressure way of kind of getting used to just going straight from swim to bike to run, like just doing that say on any given Saturday, just like go to a pool, then go for cycles, and like nothing too official. And then I just did one, I think 2 months before, just in terms of what's it actually going to be like on race day, like just getting all my gear in the right places and like being able to transition quickly, stuff like that.
Yeah. And was that an Olympic distance?
Say again?
Was that an Olympic distance triathlon?
Yeah, it was as well, just because I thought it'd be good to get used to doing something just a little bit longer, I think.
Yeah.
So if you're going for 10 hours, do you practice transitions? Because I know I take the transition zone.
I do practice them also mentally, in terms of that you exactly know the structure, how to go through everything. But that being said, it also depends on the venue, because in Cascais, as you know, the transition is like extremely long from the swim to the bike.
Yeah.
I heard, I'm not sure whether it is correct, but I read that it is the longest transition in triathlon or Ironman worldwide, with this 1 kilometer run, which is like extreme. So I mean, being focused on time, I want to do it once under 10 hours. It's a big goal, but on the other hand, it can also be a little bit a silly goal, because you're really dependent on the conditions of the day. I mean, you can be like extremely good trained, but if it is like stormy, windy, whatsoever, what it's going to be like. But it's relative. But I wanted to do it because it came up once as an idea that I feel like if you can do it under sub hours, you kind of have to crack the 3 individual sports, because basically, you then have to swim in like 1 hour, 10 minutes or something. So at a 1 minute 50 pace per 100. You have to bike in like 5 hours and a bit. So at like 20 miles per hour. And you have to do the marathon in like sub 3:30. And like, for many people, running a marathon like sub 3 hour 30 is already a goal in itself. So I always felt like, if you can do that, I mean, then you really master it. I mean, then you, and it's like extreme, because like it's hard to imagine that you can run like a sub 3:30 marathon in an Ironman. But apparently some people can do it, and I just try to figure out whether I can get my body in a shape that you can do that.
So it's interesting then, because that sounds like that's really your like motivation for doing it, because you were talking before about how is that curiosity of like how could you possibly run a marathon that quickly after doing all of that stuff before it. So that's it's interesting that kind of goal is what got you into the am I right to say that that's what got you into doing the Ironman, like rather than just the idea of like crossing the line at the finish?
I think that's correct. I'm intrigued by figuring out the human limits, or like what your body is, your physical capacity, so to say, and how you can extend these limits on a year-to-year basis, and to figure out what is possible. And always when I read some interviews by the pros, they say like, you kind of build like a huge aerobic engine, and you can go on cruise control mode, and then you run a marathon afterwards. And I find that interesting, and I do feel that if you do a lot of biking, you kind of get used to like 6-7 hour bike rides, and it doesn't hurt your legs too much, and you can still run a marathon relatively fresh. And
that was something that really surprised me on the day, because I hadn't really cycled. I think that the furthest I cycled in training was like 130, and then on the day, because I went in the wrong direction for a bit, it ended up being 190. So that was already on its own to before, and I was really surprised like how fresh I was actually like coming off the bike. It was really strange.
Was it also, do you think, mentally? Because I always do feel with an event like this, there's like so much adrenaline. There are so many people on the course. You have the 8 stations. Time flies by really quickly. Whereas if you have to go like by yourself for like 200K, it's like, it's sometimes seems like an endless exercise.
I think that's definitely part of it. And then that as well, it does make you reflect a little bit on how much of it is just mental, really. Because like a lot of people say the training, because even though you're not doing as much as on race day, it's just, I don't know. It's a lot harder to keep going when no one is kind of behind you, like really pushing you to do it. So
yeah. And were you, when you think back when you were standing at the start line, did you have fear, or were you excited? What was like emotions?
That was really. I remember the start as probably being one of my favorite bits, really, just because it almost felt like the beginning of a concert, the way they were building up, like, because it's not like the music at 5 a.m. was like really chill morning, and they've got Thunderstruck going, and everyone's like, let's go. Oh my god, it was crazy, like that it was that hyped up. I think because as well it helps you take it not so seriously, I think. Because I think in training sometimes you can get a bit serious about, like, I'm doing the Ironman, just on the day, just having people to remind you actually you're there to have fun as well. I think that was really good.
And were you confident at the start, like, okay, I'm going to make it, or did you have a lot of doubts, like, oh, I'm not sure, maybe I have an injury or a niggle, or what was your mindset?
I'd been injured only, I think maybe only about 2 weeks before the race. I think it might have been like something in my calf muscle, like left calf muscle tore a little bit. But it wasn't anything major. It was just kind of one of those injuries where you're like, okay, that means that my training, it could have been, and there's also the possibility that the injury comes back on the day later in the race. So yeah, on the start line, I had no idea. I didn't know if I trained enough. I didn't know if an injury was going to like take me out halfway through it. I didn't know if I was just going to fall off the bike halfway through. So I had no idea what was going to until about maybe 15 minutes to the end that I was actually going to make it, I think.
Oh, wow.
What about you? Because I know even if you're at a high level of training, a lot of people have doubts about the actual day itself.
I had a running injury when I was at the start. I mean, in August I picked up an inflammation in my hip, and always when I increase like the length of my runs, I struggle a bit with that. So in August I did some runs around 25k, and after that it took a long time to recover, and something in my hip went wrong, and I couldn't run for 2 months straight. I did like physiotherapy and all that stuff, but I couldn't get rid of it. So for 6 weeks straight I didn't run at all, 0. And then I got so nervous because I was like, okay, I have to run a marathon in like 2 weeks time. I'm running like 0. I mean, every step I was taking, I failed at. And then I asked my physio, and I was like, okay, can I really, break something or make it really worse with this? And he said, like, well, I think you have like a nerve problem, and you can run with it. It will just really, really hurt, but it will not have any long-term effects, he said.
so does that mean that the problem then was not so much? Did it, like, would you say then that it affected your performance, or is it literally just a pain thing that was the problem?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, because on the day itself, I didn't feel it as heavily as before. I mean, so in the 2 weeks leading into the race, I did 4 runs of 30 minutes each, and I felt every step. It was like on a scale from 1 to 10, it was like 7 out of 10 pain. But on the day itself, it really felt numb. And I'm not sure why, but maybe because you're starting the run after like 7 hours, your body already is a bit like dead, or like your sensation of pain, or probably my nerve system was like, okay, I've never experienced this. I mean, what kind of pain signal do I have to send anyway? So I could run with it in terms of pain, but I was lacking my calves and my feet weren't used to it at all, because basically, I mean, I had like a build-up of running and then 2 months nothing, and then you run a marathon. So it was difficult, but it's a really interesting question. I find. I think I have ran the marathon based on my bike fitness in terms of aerobic capacity.
Yeah.
And when I was injured, I did a lot of strength training. I did some aqua jogging as well to mimic the run movement in the water. And
okay, yeah. That's
tried
good thinking, actually. Yeah, to try and figure out ways that you can substitute it rather than just giving up on it.
I mean, this aqua jogging thing is like the best thing to really mimic the movement. You have like zero impact on your feet, and you feel really silly when you're like in the swimming pool in like the corner with all the old people.
Yeah, I see those people sometimes. Like,
it's mental. You really want to be invisible at those moments. But I was like, okay, I have to do this.
Yeah, he's like, oh yeah, you see that guy in the corner? Yeah, he's doing an Ironman next year. Him? Really?
Yeah. Yeah, but it's like that. I feel with like Ironman training, you're like out of your comfort zone all the time. I mean, like,
yeah,
I feel like prior to doing triathlons, it was like, yeah, well, if I don't want to do something, you just don't do it. And when you sign up for an Ironman, it's like, I'm injured now. I have to be fit. Okay, I go aqua jogging tomorrow. I just sign up for this class full of like 65-year-old people. I don't give jack shit. I'm gonna aqua jog 5 times a week. And that's like insane.
But that's brilliant. I mean, I think that reasons that just makes it so worth doing is that it just makes you so, like, even on just like one small thing in your life. Well, it's not a small thing; it's quite a big thing. But like having that, like, just such a focus on doing that one thing, really, it does make you realize then that actually you can do that with a lot of things.
Yeah,
it is really special.
It is, and I think that's the reason why a lot of triathletes say like it's kind of a lifestyle in the end. And when you're used to it and you're used to this training and all these things, your whole approach to a lot of other general topics in life become like different, which were like an obstacle before. Now seem to be easier. At least for me.
No, I definitely agree with that. I think it's I guess just everything's kind of relative in a way. So if you have something that you work really hard at to compare it to, it's like every other goal just seems just that little bit easier, I guess. I mean, a lot of the races I'm looking at doing now is like, I'm looking through lists online of like, okay, or like what ultras are coming up or like what marathons are coming up, and I'm like, it's kind of easy. Like
but it is like that. What once you have conquered it, I mean, if you were to sign up for a marathon next year, I mean, how can you even be like, have fear? You have done like an ultra. I mean, it's like, well, you're gonna make it. I mean, okay, you have to do the training and put some effort in it, but you already have that like deep inside the knowledge that you can do it.
Yeah, but again, that's just one of the gifts of trying to do something like this, is just having that increased confidence for so many things. It's just, that's worth it, I think.
And if we go back to the race, you wrote me that your wetsuit had some holes in it. I was like quite interested. Like, I mean, was it already before you did like an Ironman swim with like a broken wetsuit?
So it was quite an old wetsuit that I was using. It was one I bought from Hoob or Hub. It's Huub. I don't actually know how you pronounce it, but anyway, they sell these wetsuits which are like ex demo. So try a wetsuit, they'll use that wetsuit, and then they'll basically just keep repairing the same wetsuit and renting it out to customers to try on or whatever. So by the time I got it, it was like secondhand. It was a good wetsuit when originally, but it had been patched up and like all these little like connect the wetsuit back together and stuff. Basically, by the time I'd actually used it to get in the water, it just got a whole bunch of holes in it. So I jump in the sea. And you get that initial shock of like when you hit the cold, and you kind of expect that to go away within about 5 minutes. For me, it just didn't. So the whole way around, I'm just constantly like, gasping for air and like having to stop. And like, it was less than a kilometer into it. I was honestly thinking, I don't know if I'm actually going to even make it past the swim. And because I was just that cold, and it became a thing of like, okay, I can see the next buoy just ahead of me. It's like, okay, well. So you like swim out to the buoy, and then you get to the buoy, and you're looking at the next buoy, and like, well, I'm a little bit colder, but I'm still okay. Like, can I get to the next buoy? You're like, yeah, I guess I can get that far. So you go again, and it's like by the time you just keep doing that, and then before you know it, you've just made it through the whole thing. So yeah, I wasn't fast though.
Yeah, I had the same with the swim. I mean, if I have to think back on the swim, it's like, it's really difficult to describe. It was just such a survival mode to jump in the water with so many people. I mean, I'm not aware of time or where I was in the water. I can't really remember what was going on. I just remember there were like 3,000 people. I saw like red caps everywhere. It's like from buoy to buoy, and it's like one big mess. And at some point, it comes to an end. But yeah, it felt like, was I swimming? It was more like bumping into people, punching. And
yeah, yeah. I mean, because that was something I was really afraid of, because I'm a really slow swimmer, so I just filtered myself to the back. But yeah, the idea of being kind of where you would have been is like toward the front end, with all those people just crammed into one spot. A couple times they were kicked in the face. It really hurt. So like the idea of just having that constantly like all around you was just
And were you surrounded by people all the time? Like, did you end up in a group where you can swim with, or like could you focus on your own water? Or?
I was very much to the back, I think, because I was very aware that I didn't want to be in a situation like that where if I got hit in the head or something, I don't know. Yeah, your mind goes crazy sometimes, but I figured stay at the back, stay where it's safe. So I was kind of with a lot of old people. I think a lot of them were sort of just doing breaststroke and things like that. And I'm doing my best with front crawlers, still not getting further than them. It says a lot about my swimming ability, I think. But yeah, I was happy at the back. Although I saw a lot of people were talking about how Ironman Cascais with the sun.
Yeah.
And then you're supposed to be looking for the buoy, but because the sun was like just rising, it was just completely blocking out the whole view of everything.
I completely agree. I literally didn't see anything. I was like, if they are sending me off to like Africa, Australia, I had like no clue. I was like, I cannot sight. I'm just following some legs in front of me, and I can just pray that this person has like some idea where he's going.
Otherwise, everyone's hoping that the person in front of them knows what they're doing, and you could just be going anywhere.
I had no clue, and I really loved the organization, but the only complaint I had was like that all the swim caps were red, but the buoys were also red. So when I was trying to sight, I was like, okay, so I see like 3,000 swim caps. How am I supposed to see one buoy, which is like a mile away?
Yeah.
It was, And did you check your watch at any point during the swim? Did you have any sense how long you were in the water? I didn't, and I was like, I said to myself, I'm just gonna swim until the end. I'm not going to look at my watch. But I had like no clue at all of like time at any point.
I think I checked mine a couple times. Not that it was particularly helpful, because I don't know, maths is not my strong point. So if I'm trying to figure out like, okay, I'm at this time and I have this long to go, like how fast do I need to be going to get there and all that kind of stuff at once, but it didn't really it didn't really help.
And then you came out of the swim. Was it like relief, or were you excited, or like what was going through when you have to climb that 15% ramp?
Yeah, I almost couldn't believe I'd actually made it out of the swim. I was like within the first sort of probably like the first 500 meters of like, oh crap, am I actually going to do this? So coming out the swim, I was like, I actually made it to the bike. This is great.
Yeah.
But it was absolutely freezing, I think, because I'm quite interested in like the whole stuff. Like if you've ever seen like Wim Hof, he talks about how like if you're in the cold, you almost don't feel that cold, because it's skin. It doesn't go past your skin really. But when you come out of the water, the blood from the inside of your body then has to come heat it back up again. And it's when that happens that you start getting like really bad jitters. So I remember on the run toward the transition area, I was just like, my teeth were chattering. I'm like shaking around. I tried when I was putting my bib on with like the race number. I was trying to connect the two things. It was like a buckle, and my hands were just going like this. I couldn't even get it done up. It was really cold.
And did it take a long time on the bike before you warmed up?
Honestly, it wasn't that bad actually. I think when I got going, because then by that point the sun is starting to rise, and you've got the heat coming on, and obviously because you're pedaling, that's an additional bit of heat that you're generating. Do you think for you? I'd imagine probably kind of the same.
Yeah,
maybe a bit less cold.
I did a swim recon on Thursday, I believe, and I remember very good the first time when I jumped in the water. I was like, how can this water be like so freaking cold? I was like, even in the Netherlands, probably the water is warmer end of October than here. I was like shocked. And I was really I thought like, well, this will be some nice blue water, and maybe I can see some fish and some marine life. It was like completely gray. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Terrible. It felt like the swim is like, okay, they switched off the light for like 1.5 hours. I'm not going to see anything. I'm just tasting salt water. It's like extremely cold. It's gray. I get punched in my face. Why am I doing?
Where you're going? You're surrounded by people. You could be going anywhere. If you look down, you don't even get to see anything nice. It's just black or gray in the water. Like yeah.
No, it's really mental, and I was like so happy that I made it, and I also was like, okay, it's quite interesting because I really didn't sight at all. I had no clue where I was going. You just follow these people, and I was like, okay, apparently you can swim 4 kilometers without knowing where you're going, and at some point you will come back to the harbor and you've completed the swim. That's really mental, yeah. And then we move on to the bike. I found the first part I really liked that along the coast, and the first 10K was like easy to find your legs, but then you got this loop around Sintra with all the elevation, with quite a narrow road and quite steep. How was that for you? Was it difficult to climbing, or did you like it? Could you enjoy the views?
I think, I mean, I remember that first bit when you just come out of the city center and you're on your way up to the mountain. Just the views were so nice, and I think at that point I was still quite thrilled that I'd actually made it past the swim. So I was just and I was kind of warming up, so that was great. The climb was difficult at bits, because on the website they'd had it advertised as it being a rolling hill. It was definitely not a rolling hill. It was a mountain. So although it's funny actually, because of that bit, just as you start the climb, you can see the other side of the track where people come down. So I could see, it was crazy, like even just to imagine that as I was coming up the mountain, there were already people on the way down like that.
I had the same. I found it really difficult to find a good rhythm on the mountain, and I saw a lot of people with their fancy triathlon time trial bikes, which were like not really suitable for a climb which is that steep, and it was really difficult to found like a good pace. It was more like really steep, and even though then we made it through that hill, through that loop, and I remember that we had the downhill, and then all of a sudden we came in a village and we had some cobblestones.
There was a couple cobblestone bits.
What the hell? You have to do like 15% gradient cobblestone climbs in Portugal and during an Ironman. I was like, oh my god, this is like...
because I'd imagine you would have been going a lot faster than me as well, so trying to go over the cobbles and kind of keep your speed up. Like I remember when I was doing, I was just shaking around, like I really hope my bike doesn't fall apart. The screws coming loose.
And could you follow some people during the bike? Did you have some people in front of you? Did you have the feeling, or like riding in a group, so to say, or was it like all by yourself?
It was. I mean, on the climb, it was like that because, like I said, I was toward the back of the swimmers. So then hopping on the bike, because I'm a better cyclist. It was really good just being able to kind of catch up with people and have a couple conversations, like, oh, hey, how's it going? Are you? yeah, so that was really nice. And then I think that didn't last very long though. Most of the bike, well, about half the bike I was on my own, because the back of the pack by the halfway point. And then as you come down off the mountain back into the city center, there was that roundabout turn. I know a lot of people made the same mistake as me, where just accidentally starting the second loop again rather than turning out and going toward Lisbon. So yeah, I went completely the wrong way, and it was weird. Like I realized at a certain point that I was definitely going the wrong way, because there were pro cyclists coming up from behind me, and I'm like, there is no way I'm going fast enough that you've just come from behind. So yeah, like after I then turned around, because I went and like came back again. So by that point I was like basically on my own, had no idea if I was like going to make the cutoff or not. It was, I think, just from memory, like most of the people that I passed on the sort of second half of the probably would have not made the cutoff, I think, for the cycle. So that was actually quite sad, I think, seeing those people that just weren't going to make it.
Yeah, luckily you figured out how to go back, because I also read that some people just got disqualified because they didn't figure it out, and they went straight on the second loop, and then it's like, well, nice to have you here. Good luck, see you next year. So
I think I just got lucky. I mean, it might have been I asked a police officer if I was going the wrong way rather than asking one of the volunteers. So it could have just been that small change was actually the reason I was able to finish. But I'm really not sure. But yeah, it's really sad though.
Yeah.
You know, you put in so much work, and then there's just that small mistake you make. Yeah.
And on the bike, were you more like focusing on the moment, or were you like a lot of thinking, okay, I have to do the run, and like that your mind was shifting towards what was coming, or were you more like focusing on what in the moment itself?
I mean, obviously I was trying to figure out if I was still going to make it, but I think a lot of what I was thinking about was actually just enjoying it. You know, like as you're going up the mountain, you've got amazing views. Enjoy the view. As you're coming down the mountain, you're going like some crazy speeds because you don't really have to pedal that much. Enjoy the speed and the pedaling.
Yeah.
F1 track's like, wow, I'm on an F1 track. Enjoy that. And I guess just focusing on, just being grateful for like where you are and what's in front of you, and just the fact that you even got the chance to have a go at it was that I think that was probably a better way of looking at it for me, rather than constantly thinking about So what was the cycle like for you? Because yours must have been a lot busier and a lot more race like, I guess, than mine.
Yeah, it was busy. I'm also not a very good swimmer, so on the bike I passed a lot of people, especially at the first loop on the climbs, like a couple of hundreds. That went really fine. I received a drafting penalty in the part between that roundabout, like along the coast when you were riding towards Lisbon. I mean, in the beginning, I was really respecting this drafting zone of like 12 or 20 meters, what it is. But I saw a lot of people like riding really close together. And I was like, well, this is not really how it should be. And I didn't see any race referees or something like that. But at some point on the course, you had like a U-turn to make. And not at a roundabout point, but when you were driving back from Lisbon, you had to go up at some point, and there was a U-turn. And there was like a race referee standing, and I just wanted to pass somebody who was riding in front of me, and I overtook on the right side, which is not allowed. And then like 2 minutes later, a motor was like riding next to me, and they showed me the blue card, and
oh, really?
I found it. Yeah, but it felt like, I mean, it was completely a mistake for me. I mean, you cannot overtake on the right side, and I was too close to somebody, so they were really following the rules. But I still have to laugh a bit about it, because, I mean, I was also somewhere at like place 500 in the field or something like.
Yeah, it's like, why are you giving a blue card to me?
It doesn't matter at all. I mean, whether I'm like 600, 500, 400, and then I'm like, okay, there's like some guy showing you a blue card.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then I was quite stressed because they said that yeah, you get a blue card. It's like a 5-minute time penalty, and you have to take that 5 minutes at the first penalty tent you see. And I was like, yeah, but how the hell do I know?
If you miss the penalty tent, then
how do I know where the next penalty tent is? So I just remember for like 30 kilometers, I'm like, is that a penalty tent? Is that a penalty tent? Is that a penalty tent?
Yeah.
At the start of the second loop, at like kilometer 110, there's like a yellow penalty tent. Yeah, and then you just feel really silly. I mean, you stop there, and yeah, it's like
because it's not like you tried to do anything wrong. I mean, it's not, you're very aware. You're looking at other people who are probably deliberately drafting, and then you're the one who ends up with the blue card.
Yeah, I mean, I was wrong, so I'm not gonna refuse that or something like that. But I was quite surprised, to be honest, how many people, were not bothered at all by the drafting rule. I mean, some people still had like 5 or 6 meters in between, but I saw like complete groups riding together, and I was like, wow, this is not triathlon anymore. I mean, if you're riding with 8 people at like directly at somebody's wheel, that's insane.
At least from what I've seen, is some people think that it's just sometimes it's almost faster to take the 5-minute penalty than, which sucks. But I guess it's like, at the end of the day, just concentrate on your own race, And,
it is.
Like, why are you there rather than why are they there? In a way.
Yeah. And when you got off the bike, I mean, for me, it's always a very, stressful. It's not the correct word, but it's like I'm always a little bit nervous. How do my legs feel when I get off the bike? Because that's like the first sign. Okay, can I do the run? How was that for you when you got off the bike after such a long ride?
Yeah, I was okay. So I remember the last hour of the cycle, I really had to pick the pace up because it got to the point where, like, as you were turning around to come back from Lisbon, so you're on the final stretch toward the transition zone, I could see on the other side of the road where I'd just been maybe 10, 20 minutes ago, the cutoff vehicle was like coming up and clearing away all the sites. So I'm like, oh my God, this is terrifying. So I'm legging it back. So I was really, really fast on the way into the transition zone. That kind of scared me a little bit because I was like, well, I don't know going this quickly. But yeah, I found the energy too. And I think at that point, my mind was like maybe a little bit fried because when I went into the transition zone, I then couldn't figure out where I'd actually left my kit bag and stuff to change for the run.
Yeah.
The cutoff vehicle's like on their way. I'm checking around everywhere. Like, where is my number? Where am I supposed to leave my bike? Where is my run gear?
Yeah.
That was really stressful actually getting out of the second transition, I think.
Yeah.
But then I made it work in the end, and then coming out onto like the actual run, like to even be there. So, yeah. It must have been when you were there as well, right? I mean,
it was. I think at around 3 o'clock or something. I started the marathon. It was pretty warm. I remember when I started off, and I was really curious how my legs would feel, given that I hadn't run for such a long time. But immediately it felt pretty okay. I didn't feel the real pain in my hip that I was feeling before. I really enjoyed the run course. I found it very spectacular with the views in the ocean. But the hill, I mean, I'm from the Netherlands. Everything is flat, and even if there's like 1 meter elevation, we call that a mountain. And Ironman describes the run course as being flat, but this was like a marathon with like 240 meters elevation, which I found pretty considerable. And on every lap, you had just like 1 kilometer. Like, it's a hill, but I did feel it, especially like running down. I mean, running up, I find it okay, but you use your quads, but like running down is always a bit like, but your knees and your run form, your movement starts to change. That was not easy, and I actually spoke to a lot of people who said like this run was definitely not flat, and with like the wind, and it was difficult, but mentally I liked the course because you could just focus on like the lighthouse after 7K, and then you go back. You had this feeling of doing a loop. I quite like that, and also that it is just like busy on the course, that you're not completely on your own. Otherwise, it's I think that's more difficult.
It's interesting. Like, it sounds like your experience with the run was very different to mine in terms of like. So okay, so where I'm from is or where I live is in Exeter. So if you've ever, I don't know if you've ever been to Devon or Cornwall, but it's just hills the whole way. It's crazy. So I had quite a lot of hill training. So I've seen a lot of people who've said the same thing of like that was definitely not a flat run. For me, by comparison, that felt really flat. So I was having a lot of fun with that.
That's and in terms of nutrition, how was your body like after such a long time? Did you have like a real strategy in terms of like I'm using liquid foods or a combination of solid foods, or were you not thinking about that at all?
I think actually I might have had a okay. So my nutrition plan was not rigid at all. It was I'm kind of like an eat how you feel kind of person, and that at least for me and my goals, that's basically worked out. So kind of by the day, I think I foods after I came off the bike, so I didn't feel like my stomach could handle it really. So on the run it was mainly just making use of like the stuff that they had there, like Red Bull, Gatorade, stuff like that. Yeah. What about you? I mean, because I'd imagine yours was a lot more rigid.
What I normally do is the first 3 hours during the bike, I still eat some solid foods, and then after 3 hours into the bike, I switch to liquids to get my stomach and body used to not having to digest solid foods, which increases the risk of leading to an issue during the run. There are some gels that I can digest easily, and you have this Cliff Blocks, which is more like a wine gum or something. You can chew on it. Yeah, I like that. I started using that. It's like it's quite new, and a lot of people are using that now. So my strategy was to get like 60 to 70 gram carbs in my body per hour during the run. With like gels and the Cliff Blocks, and to drink a sip of water with it to not have like the full concentration, that it is not too sugary and that you have issues with it. And that worked out fine. And I took, I think, 2 salt tablets during the race just to get like the electrolytes levels high during the race. And I felt that really helped. I felt like strong the entire race. And I mean, if you can be as fit as you want if you have like a nutrition problem. And I saw during the run quite a lot of people like throwing up or like
really,
running straight into the ocean to go pants down and go for it.
Actually, now that you say that, I think because by the time I was there, I think a lot of people had already finished. So I hadn't remembered until now, but I think I had seen like piles of vomit just sort of scattered around.
I mean, it really felt like a battlefield to me. Like, so we had these 3 loops of 40 kilometers, and I started off the run really easy. I was like start conservative, and just see if you have anything in the tank each kilometer. And in the first loop, everybody was passing me. I was like, whoa, these people are like so fit. Everybody must be really good trained. And then the second loop, it became like neutral. And in the third loop, I was passing people. And I saw a lot of people, like there were ambulances standing at the right side. People were like sent off to the hospital because they were like, I don't know, like completely dead. I saw people throwing up. I saw people throwing up and running at the same time. I remember some guy coming to me. I was like, okay, this is interesting. Somebody is like running and throwing up simultaneously. How is that possible? I mean, at every aid station, there were some toilets, but like some people, were like so desperate to go to the toilet that they were like, okay, this toilet is closed. They just ran off to the bush or like the ocean and
did you see the state of the point during the race? I'd imagine you must have done.
It was pretty pretty interesting.
I mean, because for me as well, like, because basically the entire like everyone had already, for most of it, most people had already been through by the time I'd gotten there. It was not in a good state.
Yeah, but it must have been almost midnight when you finished, right? Was it really chilly at the?
Was it really what?
Yeah, whether it was cold during the run. Yeah.
I don't think it was. I don't think it was that. Normally, if it's wind chill or like in the air, I'm kind of okay. I'm not good with water and in the cold, but if it's in the air, I'm kind of okay. So I'm not sure if it was actually that cold by the time I was done, but it was actually really nice. It was about midnight by the time I came in, but for that last loop, as I went out, I remember looking up at the stars, and it was just crystal clear night.
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen that in months because I live in the middle of a city at the moment. Yeah. So just to have that was like, wow, it was it was really nice at the end.
How was that last loop? Because I can imagine I finished at like 8 o'clock in the evening. It just became dark. And I can imagine if you then have to go for another round and there's a little bit less crowd and anything, you're really by yourself. It really becomes like a mental game, so to say. Was it like
Yeah, so when I'd first gone onto the run course, it was really, really nice being around people again, because other people are on different loops still coming in and stuff like that. There's music thumping, it seemed like everyone was in quite a good mood, and that was really good. But then toward the end, I was with people until my last loop, but then that final loop coming out, I was very, very much on my own. And I was running quite slowly at that point as well. So as I came in, like before turning around for the final loop, I saw my family there, and my dad, who'd been keeping track of the time, he shouts to me like, Owen, 8 minutes past midnight. So I'm like, 8 minutes past midnight, like that's the time I have to get to get through. So I'm like, oh crap, okay, I've really got to push now, because I wasn't going to make that under normal conditions. So like I remember having to speed up on the last lap. Basically on my own, but all these people who kind of just started staggering along, just flying past them, was like, it felt great that I could still run that quickly, but it was also really sad, again, just like seeing people who you knew at that pace were just never going to finish the race. So
and the last kilometer, what was going through you, like in terms of emotions? What can you describe that when you made it to the finish line?
Yeah, I mean, it was like, I don't even know. I'm not sure how. I think I'd expected to feel a lot more triumphant, and it was more like disbelief. Like, I cannot believe that I am actually like this is insane, because I'd been running at a pace. So I was like, okay, I'm definitely going to finish now as long as I keep running. Like, I don't know. After all that time was just I don't really have any words for it. Almost it was just disbelief that like I was actually finally there after like 2.5 years of basically just dreaming of like this single moment. It was like, that was great. I mean, what do you think? Like, final mile?
Yeah, the same. I mean, it's like an emotion I never felt before, and an emotion which I also find really difficult to describe. It's not like pure euphoria or pure joy. I find it's a complete cocktail where everything comes together, where you're just like, you have the fatigue, you have joy, it's pain, it's relief, it's disbelief. It's like a complete new sensation. Your body is numb. It's like, it's really difficult to describe, but I was like, it is a great feeling. But always when I ask people this question, it's rarely that somebody says, like, I was just super happy or something. It's or like, I just heard, or I was just like, oh yeah, I liked it. Everybody's just like, it's so difficult to describe. It's like your body is empty. Like I mean, you have been on the road for like almost 16 hours. I mean,
I think it's because maybe part of it. I mean, because at a certain point, like your actual mind and your ability to think, like as you start getting towards the end of it, because just everything that you have is just going into trying to keep going forward. If that makes sense, like it's difficult to calculate time. It's difficult to calculate miles and all that kind of stuff. It's difficult to think about anything else apart from just like whatever that is, like just going forward, I guess. But yeah, like that was something I found really strange, was just not, like you said, it not being joy, but just being so many different things, but also can't really describe it, I guess. Yeah.
But you made it. You're a finisher.
Yeah. No, that's crazy as well, just being on the other side of that now. Yeah, I remember like in the last mile, because I'd been going really, like for me, I'd been going really fast towards the end of it, and then finally got to that point where I know, okay, I'm definitely going to cross the line. So I started slowing down a bit and started wobbling a little bit. And I remember passing this guy, and then he'd already finished, and he just said, "Hey mate, keep going, finish strong." And when he said that, he's like, "Finish strong." I was like, "Finish strong. I have to keep going."
Sprint.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. So I just couldn't imagine getting to the end of the Ironman and like not having put every miles. So like coming down onto that red carpet, I was legging it like as fast as I possibly could.
Actually, I looked up your Strava, and you can even see it in your marathon that you're doing this 42 kilometers, and then you have like last minute, bam, this huge spike with your little Kipchoge sprint.
Yeah. But that was probably one of the most memorable parts of it for me. I mean, obviously finishing would be, but just like again, because like that's one of the like amazing things about doing this is like every step you take it might be the furthest taken in this kind of an event, right? So you're always like pushing yourself like as far as you can go, and then to be at the end of all that and still having enough energy just to put out that one last little sprint kind of made me think like, well, like what else could I do if I actually put my mind to it? What about you? Because like I'm guessing by the end of it you probably didn't have enough energy to like push a sprint out of it. It's probably
I was like there's always a little bit left in the tank and in your legs, and I also feel like with the crowd who was standing there at the finish line, I was like, okay, it still has to look like I'm really running or something.
There's definitely an element of that,
so there was a little sprint, but it's not much. It was but I found it a beautiful feeling. I mean, with this run course at the ocean, it's dark, and then you're making your way to the little Finnish village, and and I really like the race venue, and I think Ironman Portugal Cascais has like a great future because it's so memorable what it has to offer. It's not like you're somewhere in the dark or a dirty village in the middle of nowhere. It's like really spectacular, and that really to the memory and to the emotion. So that's
I mean they really put a great course on, especially with the F1 track. I don't think I'd realized they would be doing that until
that was really cool.
It
was really cool. Maybe we have to slowly wrap it up. We're already over an hour, which is a good thing because it goes well. And maybe two final questions. What are your plans for next year?
So I know at least one thing I definitely want to do is it's not a triathlon actually, it's a Spartan race, because like during my training just for a bit to do an obstacle course race, it was like a little 5K with like something like 10 obstacles thrown in. I had a blast doing that, and it kind of pushed me to like use a lot more strength, I guess, as well, because you're like doing monkey bars and like all this kind of stuff. So I think I'd really like to go for doing I think it's a 50K ultra with 36 obstacles thrown in the way. So it's kind of that mix of like endurance and strength as well. The other thing, which is I know I definitely want to do, is Ironman Texas, which I mentioned to you before. I'd love to do Ironman Texas. That was my original.
Why is that? Why is that? Why Ironman Texas specifically?
Yeah, because of trying to balance this with doing uni work and stuff like that. In the whole calendar year, Texas ended up being the only one I could do at the time. So I originally signed up for Texas, and then because of COVID, everything got delayed. And long story short, I ended up transferring to Portugal, 3 different race destinations. So my original plan was Texas. That was what I really wanted to do. It's a flat race. I've heard it's a great atmosphere, and I've also got a bike rental still booked for it. So if I can get the money together, like that's gonna be that'll be the next one.
Where is that? Is it in Houston or Dallas? Where in Texas is it located?
Oh, I actually remember now. It's not Houston. I don't think it's Dallas. It's a city. I can't actually remember exactly where it is.
Tempe or something like it. Can it be like that?
That rings a bell. I think they did it in like Waco or Waco.
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That was the original plan, so I thought, yeah. I'm actually really surprised that I wanted to do that as well, because like I thought I would just be like, okay, do the one and done, and now it's like, well, maybe another one.
Yeah, but that's like I hear that all the time. Like everybody after the finish is like, I'm not going to move for the next 3 months. I'm so done with it. And then like 3 days later, well, I think I go like for a little light jog, or let's go for a little swim.
Yeah. And it's so strange.
It's so strange, but it's.
So what about you then? Because I'd imagine if you're going for under 10 hours, presumably you would want something quite flat.
Yes, so that's why I'm going to Copenhagen next year.
Copenhagen.
Yeah, Copenhagen is a fast course, but I also really like the atmosphere. I like Denmark; it's a beautiful country, and I watched the race this year on TV. I mean, the run is really nice in the old village, old city of Copenhagen. It's quite spectacular. So I do Copenhagen, and then maybe the year thereafter Barcelona also is quite.
Barcelona,
quite
yeah, I met a guy who went to Barcelona, I think, yeah.
So yeah, those are the races on the list, and but if Texas is flat, then maybe it's also something for me. So I will look it up. Yeah.
As well, it's not just one. You're like, okay, I'm going to do another one and then another one after that.
Yeah, I feel like I think I need 2 more years to get like under this 10-hour and mark. And what I do is like every year 1 full distance Ironman and 1 or 2 70.3 Ironmans, because I feel I can combine that work wise. And if I do more Ironmans per year, it takes so much toll of the body. That's a little bit too much, and I try to find a healthy balance, and with in this manner I think it's manageable, and then we will see.
Yeah, I mean it's still a lot, so
yeah.
Good on you for doing that, I think.
And then my final question I always ask is like, what is based on your experience the most common mistake that you feel that triathletes make, either in training or racing?
That's a really difficult question for me, because most of my training was on my own, very much. I'm not part of a triathlon club. I don't have any friends who've done this before. So it's quite hard to say. It would have to be something that I think I wish I'd sooner. I actually think for me, it depends on your goals. For me, I think it probably would be, you don't always need to work as hard as you think you do in order. That's your goal. Sometimes it can be different. You can become obsessed with like, I've got to put in every single session, even if it's messing up other things in my life. Actually, it'll all kind of be okay. Just enjoy it. Make sure to enjoy it. That's number one thing. Just enjoy it.
I think that's a very correct answer. And even when I look at myself, I mean, I didn't have a lot of specific run training leading into the Ironman, and your body can still manage to run a marathon even without like each and every run session. So don't freak out too much. Don't be too rigid on your training plan. Be flexible, and maybe focus more on quality in terms of quantity in training. I fully agree.
Is that what you would say then, if you had to pick one thing? Yeah.
If I look back at my training this year, I felt like that I was a bit too rigid at some point, and when I think I have to listen better to the body. And sometimes on a Friday, when you see like, oh, the training plan says I have to go for another bike ride of 2 hours, and when you feel like that the body is simply not responding to it and cannot absorb it, it doesn't make sense to do that. So I think like sometimes you need to take rest if you feel like your body is giving the signals to do so. And it's all about finding balance, I think, in the end.
Yeah.
So that's it. I think So it's great talking to you. I mean, you see, like an hour flies by quickly.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
a lot of things to discuss. So
no,
I really enjoyed it.
Really had a chance to talk to anyone else who's done something like this before. So yeah, it's been really interesting, like hearing your perspective, especially from someone like you who's like prepared to do something a lot more difficult than what my goals were.
Wow.
So.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast. Next week we have Dennis on the show. Dennis has finished Ironman Florida in very windy and tough conditions. His swim time was 11 seconds over the cutoff time. What happened thereafter? We will discuss it in detail and dive into his story behind time.